what is mutiny? It is a forced or passive resistance to lawful authority. It is also to revolt against discipline or a superior officer. And it is also to rise against or refuse to obey or observe authority. The Cavite Mutiny was an uprising of Filipino military personnel of Fort San Felipe. The Spanish arsenal in Cavite, Philippines, island they also known as part of the Spanish East Indies. On January 20, 1872, around 200 locally recruited colonial groups and laborers rose up in the belief that it would elevate to a national uprising. The mutiny was unsuccessful, and government soldiers executed many of the participants and began to crack down on a burgeoning Philippines nationalist movement. Many scholars believe that the Cavite Mutiny was the beginning of the Filipino nationalism, that they would eventually lead to the Philippine Revolution.
The contrasting perspective in Cavite Mutiny, Spanish view, seen as a rebellion leading to harsh repression and the execution of Gombursa, Filipino view, a local protest against unfair labor, later becoming a symbol of resistance and inspiring nationalism. Cavite Mutiny, Spanish perspective. Jose Montero y Vidal was a Spanish historian who interpreted that the mutiny was an attempt to remove and overthrow the Spanish colonizer in the Philippines. His accounts corroborated with the account of Governor General Rafael Izquierdo, the Governor General of the Philippines at the time of the mutiny.
Governor General Rafael Izquierdo. He was famous for his use of iron fist type of government, contradicting the liberal government of his predecessor. Carlos Maria de la Torre Navacerrada. He was the Governor General during the 1872 Cavite Mutiny, which led to execution of 41 of the mutineers, including the Gomburza Beast. Spanish accounts. Jose Montero y Vidal. He interpreted the mutiny as an attempt by Filipinos to overthrow Spanish rule, inspired by liberal ideas from Spain and the U.S. Governor General Rafael Izquierdo. He blamed native clergy, mestizos, and lawyers, suggesting the mutineers planned to establish a government with Jose Burgos or Jacinto Zamora as leaders. Trinidad Pardo de Tavera. He viewed it as a local protest rather than a revolution, accusing Spanish friars of exaggerating the event to maintain their power. Edmond Plauchu. He traced the cause to Governor Izquierdo's new tax policies, which angered the previously exempt laborers.
So, what is Gomburza? Gomburza refers to the three Filipino priests, Mariano Gomez, Jose Burgos, and Jacinto Zamora, who were falsely accused and were executed by Garrote on February 17, 1872. After being accused of conspiring in the Cavite Mutiny, the Spanish colonial authorities used the mutiny as an opportunity to target and eliminate prominent reformists, accusing them of treason and sedition to justify their execution and suppress the growing nationalist movement. Their deaths became a powerful symbol of resistance and fueled the rise of the Filipino nationalism. What led the mutiny of the Filipino? First, removal of privileges. Filipino workers with soldiers at the Cavite arsenal lost their tax exemption and forced labor exemptions, which had been enjoyed previously. Number 2. New tax and labor policies. Governor General Rafael Izquierdo's new policies imposed taxes and forced labor on these workers, causing them widespread discontent. Number 3. Colonial oppression. General frustration with the Spanish colonial government's abuses and injustice fueled the unrest. Number 4. That's the last, which is emerging nationalist ideas. Exposure to reformist and nationalist ideas inspired some Filipinos to challenge colonial rule.
Localized protests. The mutiny was driven by the grievances of Filipino workers and soldiers at the Cavite arsenal who were angered by the removal of their tax and labor exemptions. Immediate causes. The new policies imposed by the Governor General Rafael Izquierdo, which required these workers to pay taxes and perform forced labor, were seen as unfair and exploitative. Nationalist sentiment. Although the mutiny was not initially intended as a widespread revolt, it became a symbol of resistance against Spanish rule. The unjust exclusion of key figures like the Gombursa praise galvanized nationalist sentiments. Manipulation by authorities. The Spanish authorities used the mutiny as a pretext to suppress Filipino reformists and activities, falsely accusing them involvement to justify the repression. Filipino perspective. Sergeant Fernando Lamadrid was a Filipino mestizo who led the Cavite Mutiny of 1872. He commanded around 200 soldiers and workers at Fort San Felipe in Cavite, revolting against Spanish colonial authorities due to removal of labor privilege. Lamadrid and his men briefly seized the fort, killing 11 Spanish officers. However, the mutiny failed when expected support from Manila didn't materialize. Spanish force quickly suppressed the revolt, and Lamadrid was killed in the assault, making him a notable figure in the early resistance to Spanish rule.